And do I know of, if I ever experienced it, do I know of other people that experience it? Almost everybody. Almost everybody that spent a lot of time doing meditation has experienced the kind of the electric and the vibrations and the buzzing that goes on, sometimes sound. And all of those things are experiences. Most of them have to do to see if they can't trigger fear. At the point where you're perfectly okay with it, you go with it, you start to use it, it starts to go away. It starts to diminish, and it doesn't do that anymore. So it's not always just your metaphor. Sometimes it's the system giving you opportunities. So yes, a lot of people experience that kind of electrical thing. A lot of people experience being plastic. So it's almost like their body is made of rubber, and they feel these vibrations like waves going through them. And it can get very intense. It can get so intense that it almost feels violent the way you're shaking. But of course, somebody standing next to you looking at you, you're not shaking at all. This is just your perception because of the data that you're getting. And once you get over the fear barrier, then you are more able to go and explore. Until you get over the fear barrier, you're kind of locked in here. So the consciousness system helping you get over that fear barrier will do these sorts of things just to give you an opportunity to get over it. Otherwise, if you don't have those experiences, you don't get over it. So part of it, you might say, is a really good sign. Somebody's working with you, so to speak, to help you get over your fear. And then they give you an experience of whatever night walkers are or whatever that helps push that fear back up again, because it's going to give you another chance to get over that one. You see? So that's probably what's going on there. Okay, who's next?
Thank you, Tom. I would like you to share your perspective on your intuition, or our intuition, and if you could help decipher between the difference of intuition or strong will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your intuition is one of your interfaces with the larger consciousness system. Okay. Though you are a piece of consciousness and you're in this virtual reality game, you're still part of the bigger system. Not only are you part of your oversoul local bigger system, but you're part of the whole system. And that system can communicate with you. And it communicates with you several ways. One is intuition. There's various ways that we can communicate with the system. Sometimes people communicate with the system with language. You know, they hear the voice. The voice tells them something. Sometimes they just like to say that's their intuition because they don't want to tell people they hear voices. Intuition is your connection to the larger consciousness system. So if the larger conscious system is trying to help you do two things. One, learn, hear. It may give you some pointers of what's happening next or how you should react to something, or whether it's just helping you. So being a teacher, being a guide for you, if you will. We also call our guides. You know, intuition can be your guide. Just different metaphors for our connection to the larger consciousness system. So what's the difference between being willful, and intuition? Intuition is a. Did I get that right? Is it between willfulness?
Yes, it was just, if you have a feeling about something, clarifying, is that your intuition helping you, or your guide helping you, or is it your ego wanting to turn a situation?
I see. Could be either. It could be either. You won't necessarily know. You see, that's why we do the meditation, and we learn to quiet all the noise, because that ego is part of the noise. That ego is part of your chatter. So you learn to get into a clear mental state where you don't have any of that chatter going on, and then you know who it is that you're talking to. As long as you don't have that, then you may be talking to yourself. That may just be your ego whispering in your ear, oh, go ahead and do it, you know. You won't get caught, you know, whatever. And you shouldn't pay attention. You only will know the difference through practice. And I would think meditation would be a good way to establish that practice. But there's no easy way to know that difference other than get control over your mind so you know where your data is coming from.
Hi, I have a question about, so based on some of the things that have been said today, if we have like the autistic children and we have a lot of disease, and a lot of people are being born with a lot more autism, and we have a lot more societal problems and like war. And if we take that love is expanding and never stops, but evil is, would we eventually reach a point where there would be so much evil that our love would bypass it and we would evolve to the higher consciousness?
That's where we're headed. Yes, it's not that we're going to there's no end game. It's not we're going to get to a point where everything stops. Evolution is a work in progress. So I don't think we ever get to the end. The larger consciousness system is not a perfect system. After all, we're it. It's us. We're a piece of it. The larger consciousness system is growing and evolving and becoming. And we're growing and evolving and becoming too. So I don't really see an end in sight, or at least not one that would be anywhere near enough to be concerned about. So it just keeps on evolving. That's the way evolution is here. It's not that, a million years ago, things were evolving and now they're not. Well, they're still evolving. It's just a slow process. So the system will continue to evolve as we do. So no, I don't think we hit the ceiling. But yes, the whole point of our system is that we grow to become love, and that evil does diminish its influence. Egos do disappear, fear does go away, and we end up with a much more loving and giving society and individuals. And there are places that I have been that are like that are more mature, say, than we are in this system. And there are places I've been that are much, much worse than it is here. So there's virtual realities all over the place and in various states of maturity and growth and evolution. So yeah, but that's where we're headed, and I think we're getting there very slowly. Okay.
Here. Hi, Tom. I have two questions. When you say larger consciousness, is it the same thing as collective consciousness, or is collective consciousness us, our collection?
Yes, when I say the larger consciousness system, I mean everything that's consciousness, not just us in this universe or even on this planet. I mean everything, all the virtual realities, consciousness, the whole system and everything in it is the larger consciousness system. And we're just a piece of it. Just this little learning lab that we're in is just one small piece of that. But within this learning lab, we have some things called collective consciousness, much as what Jung talked about with his archetypes. You have a group together that is pulling each other up. Let's say it's a group and they're involved in spiritual growth. Well, you take that group and they tend to help each other, because where one person's starting to feel like they're not getting it, somebody else is getting it, and that gives them a little more incentive and enthusiasm. They pull each other up as they go. The opposite of that is a mob. We have a bunch of people together and they're pulling each other down, and pretty soon the whole mob acts as bad as the worst of them. You see, that's collective consciousness. The collective can be big, like a nation or a planet, all humanity, or it could be as small as an organization or a mob or something else. But yeah, we do share. We are all netted with each other, and when people particularly work tightly together, and particularly if that tight working together is very, there's a lot of energy and a lot of feeling in it, camaraderie,
Driven.
that sort of thing, really connected, then they tend to share a whole lot. They sort of know each other's feelings. Their consciousness are kind of melding together, if you will, into a unit consciousness, collective consciousness. That's what many people try to develop in their teams, in their units. That's what we have a lot of research on teams, and of course the military uses teams and units, and they try to make these people train together to the point that they operate on a collective consciousness. Each one knows what the other's doing and thinking, and it can rely on that. That makes them very efficient. But they're still individuals. They've just got to a point of closeness that they're tied together very tightly. But we can connect with any other being on this planet, and lots of beings that aren't on this planet or aren't in this universe. We're all netted.